I'm Thompson-Amarteifio, and this is a day in my life as a director of global payroll for DoorDash. I start my mornings on the go, taking my sons to school, and then checking Slack for any urgent updates. When you're overseeing payroll and compliance for 7 countries, you never know what might come up while you're asleep. Like many payroll professionals in this post-pandemic era, the office isn't the only place where the magic happens. In fact, with the team spread across multiple states and countries, the vast majority of our communication is virtual. Even as we work remotely, I'm driven to make payroll more visible as a business function. As payroll continues evolving, I want my team to be empowered to adapt quickly to take on new challenges. Today, I have the opportunity to visit the downtown Chicago office and connect with our benefits team. As a director, I need to ensure that payroll doesn't just exist in a silo and that our cross-functional work remains smooth and productive. Being a part of a growing company at a time when technology is rapidly advancing grants me a unique opportunity to challenge the status quo and demonstrate payroll's strategic value. After networking with other industry leaders at Payroll's Executive Summit, I believe we're on the precipice of a touchless payroll operation, and I'm excited to drive payroll to its next destination.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of the District of Illinois Fireside Chat. I am Brother Dr. Leonard C. McKinnis II, and I am so excited about this program this evening. Listen, we are live on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Do us a favor, share this, invite your friends, your family, and those who you love, and those who you want to know about an extraordinary human being tonight. You are in for a treat. I am delighted about our conversation this evening. But once again, thank you for joining in and taking time out of your evening to join with us in our next edition of the District of Illinois Fireside Chat series. We are looking forward to a wonderful conversation this evening. Let me, of course, welcome to the stage Brother Chuck Smoot, the District of Illinois historian. Brother Smoot, how are you this evening?
I am doing very well, Brother District Director. How are you today?
Man, I'm well. I'm staying cool. It's very hot these days. Are you ready for that to be the case?
Well, are you talking about the weather, or are we talking about our cultural climate that we're going through now?
Man, listen, we gonna let DC stay in DC tonight because we too ice cold for that. So
exactly.
Coldest ice brothers. That's why we're here. But Brother Smoot, we've been doing this, man, for over a year now, and we've had
And I was thinking a little while ago, like this is like the beginning of a new season.
It is.
We started with the Xylambda thing, the profile on Xylambda for winning International Chapter of the Year, and now we're doing this, and we're making plans for the next few ones. So I feel like we're almost producing a high quality, high value TV show here. So
yes, no, this is definitely the case, and I know tonight is not going to be any less than stellar from what we've done. The guest tonight, Brother Reuben, I've known Reuben for many years. In fact, we met, of course, in the fraternity in some respect, and over the years, we've stayed connected. And I'm going to bring him to the stage because very recently in Philadelphia, we realized that we had someone in common, that over all these years we've known each other, we had no idea that this was the case. So let me just welcome to the stage our good brother in the house of Alpha, Brother Reuben. How are you, man?
I'm well. Thank you, District Director.
Good. So good to see you. I was telling Smoot, Brother Smoot, in case Brother Hall is listening, but
he's traveling back from Africa. I think we're safe.
That's right. So recently, for those of you who are watching, I was in Philadelphia and ran into Brother Reuben, and we started talking, and casually, it comes up in conversation. He was with another brother who mentioned that he was going to Austin. And the brother said, "Oh, I know some folks in Austin. In fact, I was, in the wedding of someone who was in Austin." And I just, casually said, "Who?" And he said, "Aunt." I said, "Like Anthony Walker?" He said, "Wait, how do you know Anthony? That's my brother-in-law." It's so weird.
Wow.
And Reuben was in my brother-in-law's wedding, and he had no idea of this. I mean, well, my brother-in-law's wedding. He was in my brother-in-law's wedding in Arizona,
Yeah, the other brother I was with was one of his groomsmen. Yep, and then me and Anthony were both groomsmen in that brother's wedding. Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Okay, in that brother's wedding. So, small world. But listen, we have a growing audience across our four platforms tonight. So we don't want to leave them hanging. Brother Smith, why don't you kick it off this evening and welcome our guest?
Yes, Brother Reuben, we do want to thank you and welcome you here. It is truly an honor to have you here. Before we get started, I do just want to share a little bit from your bio, and so our audience can understand a little bit about your background. Brother Reuben is the proud son of Ghanaian immigrants, born in Southfield, Michigan, and raised in St. Paul, Minnesota. He is a husband to his wife Camille and a proud father to two boys. I'm assuming two future alpha men, Cameron and Elijah. They currently reside in the western Chicago suburbs. He was initiated into Alpha Phi Fraternity Incorporated in the spring of 2002. We got another single letter chapter brother here through Mu chapter. Don't hate, Brother McInnes. And
I'm the second half of that. You.
Yeah, okay. He served as the secretary, the vice president, and assistant district director of Minnesota, later leading as president of Gamma Chi Lambda, and chairing the 80th Midwestern Regional Convention. Now he's a member of Mu Lambda chapter, which is here in Chicago in the western suburbs, and continues to live the fraternity's mission in the Illinois western suburbs. He earned his Bachelor's of Arts in Sociology from the University of Minnesota and an MBA from the University of St. Thomas in Minnesota. Professionally, he is a global payroll leader with over 20 years of experience at companies including DoorDash, Coinbase, Google, Health Partners, and General Mills. Excuse me, and his expertise spans payroll operations across multiple countries, M&A integration, HRIS, finance operation, and large-scale transformation projects, all driven by a passion for building strong teams and delivering innovative employee experiences. So, brother, I do want to thank you again for joining us today. And as we begin, I want to talk a little bit about the beginning of your journey. You come from, as we mentioned in your bio, that your parents are immigrants from Ghana, and you were born in Southfield, Michigan. How did that upbringing from immigrant parents, how did that help to shape you in terms of laying out a path for what you would do for your professional endeavors?
Yeah, my growing up, first generation American immigrant household, just hard work was always valued in my home, and education. So growing up, definitely in a strict West African household. So, schoolwork and discipline was a big thing. There was no option to not go to school or not go to college. That wasn't an option or anything like that. So I was always striving. I think my parents definitely helped motivate and build ambition in me, and I think that overall, wherever I decided I was going to go or wanted to do, that was always a seed that was planted very early on, and that played a role in my life. And just in different affirmations, growing up West African, you don't get a lot of affirmations, but sometimes you got to read between the lines. My mom was always telling me, don't be a follower, be a leader. That was kind of like that. And that's stuck with me my entire life, and it was back then, it was just like making sure I wasn't like sagging my pants at school and things like that.
Right.
Like, don't be a follower, be a leader. And that just stuck. And I tell that to my kids now. So, be a leader in the house. And I think those, types of affirmations do wonderful things for young people. And that was a seed that was always there.
And so you were raised in St. Paul, Minnesota, and I would be remiss if I did not have to ask this question, and this is diverting a little bit, but I'm assuming that you went across the way over to Minneapolis and Chanhassen. So did you go to Paisley Park? Did you go hang out with Prince?
Paisley Park. It's interesting. Growing up in Twin Cities, if you live in St. Paul, you typically don't usually go to Minneapolis for a whole lot, vice versa.
Right.
In my adult years, definitely was living in Minneapolis, and I did get a chance to go to Paisley Park and had a fantastic experience meeting Prince. When I didn't meet him, like shake his hand, but he did appear. It was kind of magical. Most stories you hear about had some type of magic to it, and that was we were there for a concert of a band he was kind of promoting, and then everybody was hoping he was around, and we didn't see anything. He wasn't in the crowd. He wasn't in the balcony. And after the concert, if you've been to Paisley Park, they got the small little concert series. There's a little room, and then all of a sudden the wall opened up. Like, the gymnasium door walls from old school gymnasium opened up to this large concert hall, and then all of a sudden he just popped up on a stage out of nowhere and started DJing. So that's one of my
That's awesome. I'm sorry. I apologize, brother district director, but anytime I can invoke Prince, I'm going to. But now tell me, you enrolled at the University of Minnesota, and it says that you started out originally studying sociology. What were your original goals? What were your original plans when you first enrolled in college?
When I first enrolled, because again, going back to those like West African roots, it was expected you wanted to be a doctor or a lawyer. So I thought I was a sports physician. I was an athlete in high school, and I was kind of trying to do what my parents were expecting me. So I started out thinking I was pre-med. That wasn't going to work out. Took a sociology class. Was really interested in what I was learning there, and thought I was going to be a high school principal. I was interested in education, and going to grad school at that time wasn't something that I was like interested in. And but I was interested in sociology, and I was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. It was very general. My parents weren't exactly happy about sociology major just because they didn't understand what it was and what it was going to do for me. What it did for me is just understanding people in society, and that's actually been able to translate into how I manage people today and being able to connect and be a relationship builder. So that's where I started out, and just like a lot of payroll professionals, you kind of just fall into the industry, and that's exactly what happened to me.
Okay. And so while you are at University of Minnesota, that is one of our early chapters, the MU chapter. And how did you become? I want to say again, it is a single letter chapter. So I always have to give Brother McKinnis a little bit of gruff. But what was it that drew you to Alpha, and what was it that made it appealing for you?
I was at the time there wasn't a lot of fraternities on the yard, even though we had multiple single letter chapters of the D9 on campus. But as your historian, Minnesota has an interesting history where there was like ebbs and flows.
Yes, right.
Throughout the history, and that was the case at that time when Alpha was just starting to get back up. It got back on the yard in 1999, and slowly it was kind of circulating and having a bigger presence on campus. I actually, the first fraternity black fraternity I saw on campus was not them, because it was still trying to grow. And by the time I got to my junior year or sophomore year, I would see brothers on campus with letters and became more prominent. And I started to ask. I have an older sister who went to HBCU, Miles College, Birmingham, Alabama, and I started to ask her about. She's a Delta. I started to ask her about Greek life, and she told me about a few things. And I said, I talked to Omega, and she was like, okay, I'm not sure. She was real nice about it. She's just kind of like, I'm not sure if this is you, whatever. And then there's a probate on campus, Alpha Phi Alpha. She's like, you should go to that. She's like, hey. And I said, okay, all right. And me and my roommate at the time was also frat. We went, and I hadn't done any research or anything like that. I just was just going. I just, and I went, and then I saw the probate, and I was just like captivated. To be honest, I was just like, what was that? And then afterwards, I started seeing brothers on campus, and I started to relationship build like I usually do, and started to learn, do some research,
watching School Days and reading books.
Right.
Almost, everything that you do. This is pre Alpha MX.
Right.
Still just kind of this Black Planet. There's no social. There's no Facebook. Nothing. So you're just
That's right.
You were searching for stuff like a real researcher. Not a whole lot of information out there. You really had to talk to brothers and ask, and then go to an informational. So I went to the informational, and it was I was locked in from there.
Yeah, I think a lot of brothers don't realize the importance of Mu Chapter. I just want to, if I can put on my historian hat for a moment, Mu Chapter produced, I would dare say, one of our most influential brothers in the early days of the fraternity, Brother Raymond Cannon. I had the pleasure in the early 90s, just shortly before his passing, when I was living in Las Vegas, the chapter I was involved with out there brought him out there for Founders Day, and I had the unique opportunity to sit and talk with him, and he was an amazing individual to sit and talk with and learn and hear stories at the feet of. And there's a pretty popular YouTube video of Brother Cannon talking about the early days of the fraternity and his views of working with the founders and Brother Wesley, who was our national historian, and just some of the things that the brothers there in Minnesota, what they did for the Midwest region to help put Alpha on the map. And so, Mu Chapter is, a critical factor in the development of our organization. I think that's one chapter that, like I said, a lot of brothers don't realize how important that chapter definitely was. So, obviously, it's great to have you. I'm sure you are a proud son of the alumni of that chapter. And so now you go to grad school, and what is it? You maintained activity within the fraternity, serving as president of an alumni chapter, and serving as chairing a regional convention, which I can only assume is no easy feat. So God bless you for that.
And Reuben, real quick, Reuben, did you chair? Was that right before? What year was that? Me and Lambda, did we come right after you all?
No, you were before. We actually put our bid in at the Oak Brook convention.
Okay.
Right. And won it there. So that was 2012. And we were also at that same convention. We celebrated Mu Chapter's centennial.
Right.
Very special time for me. Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. Okay. So let's go back a little bit. What brought you to the Chicago area?
Yeah, my wife and I, we were living in San Jose, California. So I gotten recruited by Google in 2018. So we're out there for about 5.5 years, and we were just getting ready to have our first son, Cameron, in 2020. He was born April 2020, and right before that, the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
So he was born right in the pandemic. I wasn't sure if I was even going to be able to be in the delivery room. And it was it was an interesting time for everybody. So, we can all relate to that. At that time, a lot of our friends that we met out there, everyone was relocating back to where they grew up, someplace cheaper. Bay Area was very expensive. So, and we didn't have any family out there. So we knew we wanted to come back to the Midwest. We decided not to come back to Minneapolis, and we had friends in Chicago. I already had a network of brothers in the Chicago area. And my sister lives here, and some other relatives. So we both liked Chicago, and there was no work need for me to be there. I actually was lucky to work for a company where we can work remotely, and that was our decision to get to the Chicagoland area, and it's been great these 2 years.
Well, the McKinnis, you want to?
Yeah, how long were you at Google?
I was there for 4 years.
4 years.
Yeah,
and Google, what was your responsibility?
I started out as a change manager for North America payroll, and then I moved over to more of a global role, doing some M&A. And the cool thing about working there was it was kind of magical. It was kind of I wasn't sure that I was even supposed to be there, or I could get recruited. And that's a testament of for brothers watching. It's important to keep your LinkedIn updated. Also, and don't doubt yourself and doubt your abilities. You never know who's watching, and that's what happened to me. They recruited me out there. Besides, the work I did, I built a community of friends. Me and another brother, Austin Hope, who's out of Alpharetta, Georgia. We both started the first alpha group at Google. When I was there was we just kind of found each other, and by the time I left, we had put the group together about 65 brothers that worked at Google globally, which was fantastic. So being able to have that there was like a fun time, and we would do some during COVID. We did a virtual Founders Day little chat, and had a great time.
Yeah, I remember just real quick, because I remember during both my time as Theta Chapter's alumni advisor, and before that, there used to be a lot of interaction with Google, and we did notice, and I did notice at the time that there was a very strong alpha presence that was encouraging brothers, and I think we had a couple of brothers that got at least hired on at Google, at least initially out of college. So there was a definite strong alpha presence out of that. Brother McKinnon, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, you're fine. I was curious, Reuben. In college, what was your major?
Sociology.
Sociology, right. And so did you see yourself getting, because I'm always curious about paths, right? And I'm wondering when you study sociology, which I find is a very captivating field, by the way, some of my own research is sociological in nature, but I'm curious, when you studied sociology, what did you initially see yourself doing?
Great question. I wasn't sure. I thought I was going to be a high school principal. I was like, oh, this relates. And so you get to know people. And then I just, just wasn't, I was like, this wasn't, I don't think it was. So I was kind of meandering for a little bit, trying to figure things out. And one thing to know, while I was in college, I worked for this small company. It was a lady who she basically was doing bookkeeping for high net worth individuals, like a little family office. Uh-huh. Taught me how to do payroll by hand. And it was just a summer job. I just needed a summer job, and it ended up working there throughout school. I mean, I was there during 9/11, and then just was a part-time job. And while I was in school, I became like a back office manager. So I learned payroll there. I learned accounts payable. I learned how to actually run a business. But I didn't know I was running a business at the time. It was just a job. Not knowing that those skills were going to take me from that summer job that I just needed to becoming a global director at a large tech company.
And so what I hear in your narrative, Reuben, is every path or every step that was in your journey, there was something more meaningful to that initially you didn't see, but it all sort of manifested in where you are now, right?
Exactly.
And so you learned payroll, in this summer job, or that went over for a couple of years, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. And you finished college, and what was the first thing you did post your baccalaureate?
I worked for Wells Fargo. Again, it was one of those. I was just applying for jobs, and I had the payroll experience, and it was they had just started this like business payroll operation. So it was. Okay. I worked there. That was my first corporate job. And I went in there and I did it, man. I won like a national award, but I wasn't getting the promotion I was trying to get. It was I was pretty young at the time, and it was a newer business, so there there might have been some reluctancy to hire someone young, and I did everything I could do there, and then I ended up going to a larger payroll vendor called Ceridian, which is like a competitor of ADP. And that's where I started to expand my managerial scope. And again, at the time, I was just, it was a job. Still wasn't sure if this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, or I was still younger. But it's just like you start to gain skill, gain managerial experience, and I got married, so you kind of refocus a little bit. I kind of hit a ceiling there, and then I was like, I'm done with payroll, and that's when I decided to go to grad school. I went to St. Thomas, and I quit my job cold turkey. So I went to grad school full time, and at the time we didn't have any kids, and I was like, my wife and I talked about it. It's like the right time to do it. So two-year program. It was a grind, one of the best decisions I ever did, because I didn't have a formal business background. It was just a sociology. Yeah. So that's where I got my formal training. I was able to kind of like restart my career a little bit, but somehow I got pulled back in the payroll after school. Got offered a job at large healthcare organization. The chief human resource officer who was a Kappa. And this is for any young brothers working out there, is always be ready, always kind of understand your story. I met him at a breakfast that the grad program gave us tickets to, and I was tired, almost didn't go. And he was like, what did you do? I had my speech ready, and he was like, I got a role that we think we might be hard to fill, because I'd already had a decent amount of work experience before grad school. Ended up working there, and it was a fantastic experience. Led up a large team of 25 and a payroll operation to pay out 25,000 employees for a healthcare company in Minnesota, and then from there, that's when I got that call from Google, and things lifted off from there.
That's really fascinating. And so you end up in Chicago a few years later, and so once you're here, you're not yet connected to your current position.
No, actually, right before we moved, I had just started at DoorDash. I started DoorDash summer 2023, and we were in the process of moving. So a month after I started, we moved here, and it's been great. I work virtual. I have a virtual team that spans across the globe, different regions. So I'm on Zoom a lot. I'm working and talking to people in different time zones. Occasionally I get to travel to a different country to meet some of my team members. It's been a very kind of dynamic way of working, especially post COVID. If I have to go to the office, I will. If I have to travel somewhere, I will, but a lot of times I'm working from home. It's great for family life, where I never thought, pre-pandemic, that my kids would see me as much as I did, as much as they do now, where they come home, I'm home. They said, wake up in the morning, I'm here. I can drop them off, come back, be out, but I'm working a lot, but it's been great for our dynamic.
That's fantastic. We do have questions about your role and what you do at DoorDash, but Brother Smoot, you want to hop in and
Yeah. So one question: I think most people, when they think of payroll, they just think of payroll is how I get my check every week, and that's it. And I don't think people really understand that working in payroll is actually a rather complex and diverse situation. So beyond just the basic things of making sure people get paid, can you explain to us a little bit why payroll and some of the things that you've done and experienced, why it's so not only important, but why it's so crucial to a business and to a business's success?
Yes. Working in payroll is definitely a thankless job. I kind of equate being in payroll as like being able to turn the lights on. When you come home and turn the light, you would hope that when you turn the lights on, they come right on. People hope that and expect that on Fridays or the 15th and the 30th that their check is deposited in their account. And there is a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes to make sure that happens. Make sure that your taxes are paid. Make sure that the business is paying the payroll taxes. But also there's a lot of collaboration with other areas in the business, the compensation team, your equity team, and different HR partners and managers and your time system and things like that. So there's an ecosystem behind everything. But I take pride in my job, knowing that if no one knows who I am, actually, it's a good thing, because there's no problems. It means that things are working like they're supposed to. Like I said, you turn the lights on, and your money is there. So when I describe what I do, I'm introduce myself. Hey, my name is Reuben, and I make sure you get paid. That's hey, all right, that's my best friend. Okay, cool.
Exactly
who I am, but they also know, like, okay, he makes sure I'm getting paid. It's an important role. And back to your question, it is what I think energizes companies. It gets people to work and it gets people there and staying there. So it's like, without, payroll goes away, we're gonna have some problems.
Absolutely. Brother McInnes.
So thank you, Smooth. That was a really good sort of segue into, I think, our next series of questions. So first of all, Brother Reuben, DoorDash it's an international firm, right?
Yes.
Right. And it spans how many continents?
We're on several continents. South America. We're in Europe, obviously North America, and in various places in Asia.
Right. And so in your current role, I think Smooth sort of got into this to a certain extent, but in your current role, how would you describe your primary function on a day-to-day basis? Like when Reuben, we saw this wonderful clip that was done on a day in the life of Reuben, but what does in fact a day in the life of an executive at a very high, public-facing company, what does it look like for you? And by the way, I'm talking about not just in your professional aspect, but your husband, your father, right? And so there's a balance that comes with, what it means to do your job, but also be committed to those you love, right? And so I'm curious, holistically, what does a day in the life look like for someone when in your sort of position?
No, this is a great question. It's probably can be different from everyone. Early on, I tried to figure out how to figure out what my boundaries were and how am I going to be present for my family, especially post COVID and being able to work from home. Typically, it's finding balance. My wife and I every week we basically have a quick meeting to see how we're going to operate this week, our life and operations meeting. That's what we call it. Where we both work. We both have each other. We both have kids, and we have jobs, and we have friends. We have parents. So for me, it's
just real quick. Does your wife work at home as well, or does she work outside of the home?
She works from home. She's self-employed. Okay. She owns a coaching and consulting business.
So then that makes it okay. Yeah. Okay.
And for me, I'm trying to, every week trying to find some balance where it's like you're every day, you're working an amount of hours, but this summer, my kids just started to learn how to ride bikes, so I got to cut it off at a certain point in time. Most weeks and most days where we can go for a little bike ride after they come back from camp, to get some of their energy out. I may work a little later to catch up on some stuff because again, I'm working. I have, we got things going on in different time zones. And I'm collaborating a lot. It's not just my team, it's other stakeholders, other projects. So that day is, my days are busy, and I try to cut things off on the weekends, and have a time to kind of zone out, make a Mu Lambda chapter meeting in the morning, which is always on Saturdays when we have them. Go to church. Church is definitely a place so you can get the word. Also, it's a place for meditation as well, especially with what's going on right now in the world. It's a good place for mental refuge as well.
Yeah, no, I love that, Brother Reuben. Oftentimes it's difficult to find the kind of life-work balance, and it really is playing chess, especially with young children, right? Being attentive to their needs, their and also their wants, but also your own self, right? And I'm curious, and by the way, I really appreciate this conversation for a number of reasons, but how do you manage, right, self-care in the kind of role that you're in, not just caring for others, but what does self-care look like in your capacity?
Great question. It's something I'm still working through, trying to be good at it, but it's one of those things, just trying to be intentional about your health. Brother McKinnis, me and you talked offline about just prioritizing your health. You lit a fire in me at the last regional convention when you were talking about your journey, and from there I just actually that was a day where I was like, okay, I got to make some changes and I got to be intentional. Again, when my kids started riding bikes, I wouldn't buy myself a bike. Hadn't had a bike since college, actually, and bought myself a bike. And so then I started riding, got a helmet, and I started, okay, let's see how many miles I can do. So that's been something for my own self-care. Having friends, a friend group is very important to, just, you got your family, you got your, your loved ones, but also having some friends that you can connect with to kind of branch out from the daily grind is I think is a part of self-care as well. And I love music. So I constantly am finding new music as well. So that's something that I use to kind of unwind when I can. I'm a Spotify junkie. So if I'm always listening to a lot of music. I'm into documentaries. Haven't had a lot of time to get into that, but these days. But I try to find little things to keep me going, keep my energy going as well. And and also being active in Alpha is always energizing. Has always been energizing for me.
Yeah. Reuben, what do you find fulfilling in the type of work that you do? Right. I mean, there is, coming from a sort of philosophy background, there is value in work. Right. It's not just this kind of mundane activity that we do to get a paycheck. But I am one who believes there's value in what we provide through the labor that comes from our body and our mind, right? So how do you find, what do you find fulfilling about the type of work that you do in your capacity with DoorDash?
Right now, what's fulfilling is I'm building something really cool with my teammates, and also being able to give them some, I call it resume builders. I tell my team, especially when I first started, is like, at the end of the day, like I don't, I work to live. I don't live to work, and I don't expect in everybody has a different value when it comes to work. But one thing is if you're working with me, I want to make sure that if I don't subscribe to thinking that you're going to be a lifer here or anything like that. And you may find some other opportunity, but when you leave here, I want you to be able to say, like, I learned something here and I can take something transferable with me. So being able to coach and give people opportunities to learn and kind of stretch themselves, because I had opportunities to learn, some amazing things and be in some great environments. That's what's been fulfilling right now, is being able to do that. And then just, working for a company that is doing some great things. We empower communities. We give people opportunity to make a living in different ways. Restaurant owners to expand their reach, and it's been really cool. And I'm growing up in an immigrant family. Obviously, my life has been international. Most of my life, being able to travel to Ghana to visit my family there, and I have family in the UK. So being in a global role just kind of makes sense for my life as well, just because I am interested in what's going on in the world.
Yeah. I find it very interesting, given what you just said. And if I can go back to what you were talking about when you were in college and what you were looking at for studying, and, you mentioned, maybe you would look at being an educator, a principal. And given what you're saying, you are educating those. You are still doing that type of work, albeit in a different form. But it seems that what you envisioned yourself doing at one time in college, that seems that that's what you're doing now in kind of a different role. I mean, and so do you see yourself as a mentor, as a instructor, or even a coach for that matter, for those individuals that work under you?
Oh, for sure. And that's probably that's one of the joys of the job, being able to do that versus just be a manager who maybe just is very cut and dry and doesn't really connect with his teammates. I was fortunate to have some previous managers that were really connected to their teams, but also valued like having real conversations and being able to talk about real things. And I try to do the same thing as well. So the coaching and the education piece comes easy and natural. I try to make sure that people who work with me, I'm easy to talk to and can connect as a resource. Mentorship is something that's very important to me. I've happened to have lots of mentors, people who probably didn't even know they were my mentor. They just know that I call them, and I kind of and I own that relationship in terms of like the mentorship and reaching out. When it comes to the younger college brothers, I'm always, if they have questions, I may offer some advice or suggest some advice, but I'm always interested in being able to mentor there. I still have mentors, and it's something that it's very valuable. So I have mentors at work, and I make myself available to be a mentor for those who are interested.
So Smooth. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought Smooth was. Okay, no. Like you have frozen for a minute. Sorry about that. So Reuben, I'm curious. We have just a few moments left in our time together, but Reuben, say a little bit about what what is the future? And by the way, not suggesting that you're departing DoorDash, but as you think about your impact, both in terms of your career, in terms of your time in the fraternity, what does Reuben look like, in the next decade? What do folks say about the impact that you're making? Because by the way, we don't just celebrate people's impact when they're gone, right? We look at
absolutely,
in the present. And I must say, I've always known you to be a very focused person. It's obvious, in our interactions, even when you worked on the regional team, it was obvious to me then and now that there is a certain level of focus that you bring to all that you do. And so I'm curious, as you think about the intensity of your work and your focus, what do you say, you want folks to think about the impact that you're making? And you can take that question, by the way, any direction that you would like.
That's a good question. I would hope in 10 years that I've made an impact on like the way we work, with AI being the biggest buzzword going on right now, being able to take that as a tool and transcend what I'm doing in my industry, with the payroll industry, but also just, home life and being able to, help people see easier ways to do things. That's kind of like the overarching theme I see for myself. Still continuing to find ways to mentor, but also, in 10 years, I'm gonna have, some older kids. I got a kindergartner and a preschooler right now. So that will, that in itself, 10 years from now, I'll have some teenagers. I definitely want to be a present father and mentor and coach to them in whatever facet that's in 10 years. I don't know what life's going to look like and what's going to be the new thing. So being able to adjust to all of the things that are in the future is something that I think about. It's nothing's ever promised. I kind of live that way in terms of like jobs. I work and I work hard, but I have this mentality to not just say I've been here for forever, and I don't really want the rug to get pulled from under my legs. So I continue to stay positive, but also stay educated and in future thinking when it comes to technology. I don't really think about like retirement. I think about like, when do I want to throttle down and stop working one day, and what else am I going to do with my time when I'm a little bit older and I want to go a different direction or stay in the direction I'm doing and find fulfillment. And so those are the things I think about in the next 10 years, the next 20 years. And I hope that I'm continuing to make an impact in somebody's life.
So one question I would like to ask, as Brother McKenna said, we have to start looking, but given for an individual like yourself who has risen to the position that you are, and obviously there are not a lot of African Americans, a lot of African American males who have ascended to where you are. Do you feel that has created additional pressure on yourself to perform or to succeed or to model yourself in a certain way? So that you looking at your larger impact, or have things actually just kind of moved along for you where that hasn't been as much of an issue as some might assume?
Think about it. Like early on in my career, I maybe was more inclined to kind of just try to fit inside a box. But as I got out of grad school, I realized that like being yourself and bringing yourself every day to work and to whatever you do actually has worked out better for my life. Because number one, you're not questioning your own integrity and how you show up in your own authenticity. And I can only be me every single day. I don't want to be anybody else. I think that in terms of like, how I've gotten here, I've just continued to be myself. But also, I do know that I stand on the shoulders of many people who like opened doors or was that only person in the room, 20, 30 years ago, or one of five, and which was a lot of my upbringing in schools. I went to PWIs. I was mostly the only Black kid in my class, you try to take those feelings and those experiences and not let them become burdens. Like I said, it's good to have great people around you to share stories and kind of find where you have common ground. And those are things that kind of have powered me. And like again, I talked about earlier, and like my parents planted a seed of ambition very, very early, which has stayed with me. And that's been like my driving force. There have been times where I wasn't sure what I was doing. I was kind of meandering, but like I never lost ambition.
Right. So because you also talked about the things that you do for mentoring, and we all work with young brothers who are college students, what have you. And while I understand the question I'm about to ask is rather broad, but one of our fraternity's programs is the College to Corporate program, which helps college brothers make the transition into corporate life. If you had a piece, one or two lines of advice to give to a young college brother who's graduating or looking to begin his career in a corporate setting, what type of basic primary foundational advice would you give to a young brother who is looking to begin his career in the corporate climate?
Really good question. I've with the Midwestern region, I've been very involved in corporate partnerships, and within that making links to recruiters coming in. So this is definitely a near dear topic to me. I would say number one, finish school strong. With becoming an alpha in school is definitely time consuming, and definitely number one, don't forget why you're in school. Mm-hmm. And then from there, be okay with like thinking when you know what you want to do and having a plan, which is always having a plan is great. Give yourself some room to change your mind. You are not set in whatever career you want to be in. You can be an accountant one day, but then you may, and I know brothers in real life who have like been in business and then decided they want to go to academia and they want to be a professor, and they go get their people and become a professor, and they're loving it and are working towards tenureship. That's so be okay with the future and give yourself some flexibility and don't be so hard on yourself. And the other thing is, I think find yourself a good group of friends to surround yourself with and have candid conversations with, so you can use that group to kind of power your thinking, power your ideas. Again, like I definitely believe like the people you hang around with make a big difference in like your livelihood. If you're fortunate to have people who are ambitious or have some plans or moving forward, it always helps to be around that type of energy versus the latter where maybe you're not having people that you can look up to and guide you. Have mentors when you can. Ask lots of questions, and be open and be curious about life. And I think that those things can kind of help drive you. And my last thing is, I always tell people this as well: don't chase titles, chase scope. People can kind of go into different directions that and you may lead yourself to do things that you might not want to do because you're chasing a title or a name, versus actually chasing the experience and making your experience broader, where you become undeniable when it comes to, hey, John, you've done all these different roles, and we're just going to tap you to become this director, this manager, versus like you're just chasing the title. And it's easier said than done, but I think that it's a good kind of mantra to have, where you're chasing the different experiences and the skill sets that can make you undeniable.
This is really fascinating, Reuben. Thank you for that. We're it's hard to believe, but we are approaching an hour, and I do want to just ask one additional question of you, and that is, we are all members of an extraordinary organization that I know that we all love very deeply, and I'm curious, Reuben, if you can say something about, how has Alpha Phi Alpha been instrumental to you and your path moving that you've charted in this course. How do you find the fraternity to be intricate or part of your own journey?
I love this question. Inspiration from being a college brother and going to my first convention was in Indianapolis, 2002.
Mine too.
Yep. And going to the
And y'all are young.
2002 convention in Indianapolis, and really seeing like the power of Alpha from the regional level, not just your chapter on the yard, but then you see all these other brothers, you see the alumni brothers, and you're like, what do they do? What are they doing? And that's what kind of started to drive me, and just seeing how they're walking in the room, but also going back to your alumni chapter and kind of asking questions, and there's a brother in Minnesota named Henry Wesley, new chapter 76, and he always said, like, if you ever want to know, see how battle tested you are, or you want to know if you're ready to lead a meeting, like try to lead a meeting full of alphas.
Listen,
once you can do that, you can do anything,
Oh Lord, is that not the truth?
And when and when I became president of Gamma Xi Lambda, I learned right away. But that prepared me for grad school and presentations, and
didn't it though?
Being probed with questions and being able to be calm.
Yeah,
collected out there, because brothers, we're gonna get at you. We're gonna get at you.
Man,
definitely prepared me. And going to the conventions, like I love conventions. Obviously, I was on the convention team, and just being able to get inspired every time you see what you meet brothers and kind of see what they're doing, and just seeing how they presented themselves, and it's just like always a fantastic display of us when we get out there, and that was always inspiring. That keeps me energized.
Yeah, that is so true, Reuben, and I'm really glad that you went there, because I think I don't want anyone, especially college brothers, to underestimate how being president or an officer of an alumni chapter will prepare you for anything. Listen, after I finished at Mu Lambda, I felt like I was Iron Man. It's true, brothers, you are in a room full of, energized brothers who bring a wealth of information and knowledge, and everyone's a budding intellectual, and everyone has questions, and they keep you on your knees. They keep you thinking well and sharp. And so I couldn't agree with you more on that, Reuben. Listen, we're just at the end of our time together. I do want to just say how much I've enjoyed learning about your journey. It truly, I hope, is inspiring. I know it's inspiring to me. I hope it is inspiring to the brothers who are watching, especially our college men, who I think stand completely in the world of oysters, right? And the oysters right before them, and learning, as you've mentioned. And this is something, we should speak even longer about it at a different point. The power of internships, right? And the power of having these transformative experiences, even when they are unpaid.
Right.
My first internship was an unpaid internship. And it was in the White House. The White House internship is an unpaid internship. But the experience that you gain from that, and the entry point, and the lifelong, option to say that you were a White House intern, and I didn't make a single dollar from that, but it built character, right? It built connections, ways of maneuvering and connecting with folks who you otherwise would not necessarily have an option to do so. So I really enjoyed hearing how internships and summer opportunities were transformative in your own journey. So thank you for spending time with us tonight. And Smoot, I know we're at the end here, but please, Brother Smooth, go ahead and we'll give Brother Reuben the final word. But yeah.
Yeah, I just want to real quick, I want to piggyback on what both of you just said, because I think I had an internship myself when I was in college, at the Chicago Tribune. I was a journalism major at the time, and that internship taught me that I didn't want to go into journalism, um, and that was a good thing. And, and don't get me wrong. I mean, I still have my journalistic training and my background, but that internship taught me that I needed to pivot.
Yeah.
And so sometimes learning, one thing I learned in ministry is sometimes it's not always learning about what to do. Sometimes it's about learning what not to do. And I think that's one of the values of an internship. So I just want to throw that out. Brother, would you, as we get ready to close, would you, um, give us a last word of what you're looking as someone, with a company like DoorDash, with the position you're being in, like what type of message would you like to send to people who are looking up, whether they are starting out their career or maybe looking to transition their career? What types of things would you say, like words of encouragement or even words of caution,
Yeah.
that you would offer, to someone who is, looking to maybe get a little piece of what you have achieved?
Yeah.
Trust your gut when it comes to, if it feels wrong, listen to yourself, and if it feels good, start to ask more questions. Um, Look for good culture fits. Having being someplace where the culture is bad in any organization, whether it's work or a social organization, understanding that's what culture you're getting into is important, and to make sure, and when the culture changes and you need to move, think about moving. Don't stay someplace you want to be comfortable in. One cool thing about DoorDash that I really like, that I didn't say earlier, is even as corporate employees, we are expected to do dashing and do some deliveries. We call it our.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, our corporate employees, we're all required to do that. So I get, we got to do 4 dashes a year. So I get in the car, get on the app, and I've delivered some some Buffalo Wild Wings to.
Wow, that is fascinating.
It keeps you connected to the business and really understanding. So like I understand what we do. Yes, I lead global payroll, but I also know like how we're empowering the communities and what's powering the engine. And it's one of the things that really is cool. Like not every job that you get to you can be a lawyer or an accountant or something, and also go do get out to the fields once a quarter. And you can do as much as you want, which is cool. And that just is a little example of like when it comes to culture and things that are of interest with you and make you feel good, is something that I would say I would leave with the people. Just trust your gut and look for the right culture fit.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that, and let me know if you're in the Belmont Cragen area. I'll look out for you. I may order something, so
All right.
we'll let you know.
That's fantastic. Listen, brothers, we are at the end. Let me say thank you to those who joined in tonight. As usual, this conversation will remain on the district's YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch it tomorrow, and also send it out to those who may have missed it. So thank you to Brother Reuben again for joining us tonight. Brother Smoot, as always, good to see you. And Brother Smoot, real quick, because we have a couple of really critical and important discussions coming up on this Fireside Chat. Why don't you take 20 seconds to talk about especially the next two, please?
Absolutely. So on August 28th, we have Brother Jason Vassar-Elong, who will be talking about the District of Illinois' banned book drive that we will be culminating at our district conference, where we will be donating banned books, or we will be taking donations to provide banned books to those who could be of use to them. Then on September 11th, we will have our part 2 of our Faith and Black Greek Letter Organization series, where we'll be talking about the intersection between faith and membership in the Divine Nine. We have some interesting individuals lined up. And then in October and November, we are going to do a series going over the history of 3 of our national programs, which have their foundations both in Illinois and in the Midwest region. Project Alpha, Volus People is a Hopeless People, and Go to High School, Go to College. So those 2 will be happening in October and November. And so, yeah, we've got a lot of interesting things lined up. We encourage you again, hit like, subscribe, share, leave us a comment. Just let us know what you think, and so we can keep this moving, because we have enjoyed this work, and we are looking forward to providing more outstanding conversations like the one that we have had this evening, and continuing this train so we can highlight additional brothers like, brother Reuben, want to not only highlight you, but highlight other brothers like yourself, who are accomplished. And this is one of our ways of doing that. So please make sure hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we will see you on August 28th.
Thank you. Everyone, enjoy your evening. Good night.
All right. Good night.